What if the very thing everyone admires about you is the exact thing that's slowly burning you out? Not your workload, not your calendar, not your responsibilities or your identity. Think about that for a moment. Because if you've always been the strong one, the dependable one, the one who never lets anyone down, today's conversations may completely change how you see yourself. You see, the strongest women I know aren't falling apart because they're weak. They're falling apart because they've become incredibly good at surviving. And there's a big difference between surviving and truly living. The woman everyone calls resilient, who never complains, who always says, I've got it. She's often the one lying awake at 2 o'clock in the morning because her mind refuses to switch off. She's the one who takes a vacation but comes home feeling exactly the same. She's the one who tells everyone else to slowly or slow down while secretly wondering why she can't do it herself. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know something before we go any further. There is nothing wrong with you. Your nervous system has simply become exceptionally good at protecting you. So today I'm going to explain why being the strong one changes your brain, your breathing, your body, your relationships, and even your leadership style. More importantly, I'm going to show you how to begin breaking that cycle, not by becoming someone different, but by teaching your nervous system something it may not have experienced in a very long time: safety. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Rita Savoia. I'm a performance wellness strategist, breathwork facilitator, and heart math mentor. I help high achieving women and leaders regulate their nervous system so that they can lead with greater clarity, resilience, and presence, not through pushing harder, but through recovering better. And I have to tell you, I almost didn't make this video, not because I didn't think it was important, but because I knew it would require me to challenge one of the biggest lies our culture continues to celebrate. We celebrate being busy, being indispensable. We celebrate the person who answers emails at midnight, the leader who never takes a sick day, the mother who puts everyone else first, the entrepreneur who sacrifices sleep to build her dream. We applaud those people. We call them strong, resilient. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Your nervous system doesn't care about applause. It doesn't know how many people depend on you. It doesn't know your job title. It doesn't know how many degrees you have or how successful you've become. It only knows one thing: whether you are safe or whether you need to keep surviving. And for many high achieving women, survival has become so familiar that it feels like home. That's the hidden cost of being the strong one. Here's what I believe. Burnout doesn't happen because we work too much. Burnout happens because we've confused our value with our usefulness. Somewhere along the way, many of us learned that love had to be earned, approval had to be earned, success had to be earned, rest, well, rest had to wait. Maybe you grew up being praised for being mature beyond your years. Maybe you were the oldest sibling. Maybe you became the peacemaker in your family. Maybe your workplace rewarded you for always saying yes. Or people admired how much you can handle. At first, those behaviors helped you. Of course, they made you successful, reliable, respected. But eventually, what began as an adaptation became your identity. You stopped asking, what do I need? And instead started asking, what does everyone else need from me? That shift seems small, but it changes everything because your nervous system is always listening, not just for your thoughts, but your behaviors. Every time you ignore your own needs, every time you say yes when your body is screaming no, every time you push through exhaustion because someone else is counting on you, your nervous system takes notes. It forms predictions. And this is where neuroscience becomes so fascinating. Most people think that the brain is simply reacting to the world around us, but modern neuroscience tells us something a little different. Our brains are prediction machines. Every second of every day, your brain is asking one question: what do I think is going to happen next? It uses your past experiences to predict your future. So if your history taught your nervous system that you always have to be prepared, that you're the responsible one for everyone, that slowing down isn't safe, your brain begins tomorrow expecting more of the same. The process is called predictive processing. And it's one of the reasons burnout feels so difficult to escape, because eventually You're no longer reacting to stress. You're anticipating it. You have you ever noticed that feeling where you wake up already tense before checking your phone? Your shoulders are tight before the first meeting. You haven't received a difficult email, but somehow your body is already bracing for one. That's predictive processing. Your nervous system isn't living in the present. It's preparing for a future based on your past. Now, let's add another layer. Have you ever sat down on a Sunday afternoon with absolutely nothing to do and suddenly remembered 20 things you should be doing? Or maybe you finally book a massage, you lie on the table, the room is quiet, the music is soft, everything is peaceful, but your mind won't stop racing. You start making recovery lists, planning meetings, thinking about your children, wondering if you responded to that email. Why? Because stillness feels unfamiliar to you. And what feels unfamiliar often feels unsafe. Most people think that's a mindset problem. I don't. I think it's a nervous system problem because your nervous system doesn't automatically choose what feels healthy. It chooses what feels familiar, even if familiar is exhausting. Let's read that again. Your nervous system does not choose what feels healthy. It chooses what feels familiar. That's why people can become addicted to busyness without realizing it, not physiologically, biologically. Your body becomes accustomed to operating with elevated stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, constant urgency. That becomes your baseline. Eventually, calm doesn't feel peaceful anymore. It actually feels uncomfortable, almost boring, and even wrong. That's one of the cruelest tricks chronic stress plays on us. It convinces us that regulation is laziness, that slowing down means falling behind, that if we're not constantly producing, we're somehow failing. But here's what biology actually tells us. Recovery isn't the reward for performance. Recovery is what makes performance possible. Think about elite athletes. They don't become world class because they train 24 hours a day. They become world class because they understand recovery. Every intense training session is followed by restoration. Every challenge is balanced with repair. Why? Because growth doesn't happen during stress. Growth happens during recovery. Your nervous system works exactly the same way, yet most high performers never learn that. Instead, they learn something very different. Push harder, do more, need less, carry everything, and eventually become the strong one. The problem is the stronger everyone thinks you are, the less they ask you what you're doing, how you're doing, right? Have you ever noticed that? People assume you're okay because you've always been okay. They assume you've got it because you've always figured it out. That's why I call the performance protection paradox. The more capable you appear, the less support people naturally offer. Not because they don't care, but because you've become so good at protecting everyone else's from your own struggles. You become invisible inside your own competence. I know this because I've lived it. There was a season in my life when people would ask me how I was doing, and my answer automatically, I'm good. I'm fine. Everything's great. Not because I wanted to hide the truth, but because I genuinely didn't know how to answer differently. I had become so accustomed to functioning in a constant state of activation that I thought it was normal. Being busy was normal. Feeling responsible for everyone was normal. Putting myself last was normal until one day I realized something that changed my life. My body wasn't asking me to become stronger. It wasn't asking me to become safe. It was actually asking me to become safer. And those are two very different things. The strongest people aren't always the most regulated people. Sometimes they're simply the people who become the most efficient at ignoring themselves. That realization stopped me in my tracks because I wasn't lacking resilience, I was lacking recovery. And I wonder how many of you watching today are experiencing the very same thing without even realizing it. Because burnout doesn't arrive all at once, it whispers before it screams. It starts quietly, and you become a little more impatient, a little more tired, a little less present. You stop laughing as much. You wake up already exhausted. You find yourself snapping at people you love, not because you don't love them, but because your nervous system can no longer has the capacity it once did. And here's the part almost nobody talks about. Your breathing changes long before your words do. Your breath begins telling the story before your mouth ever does. One of my favorite things to say is this: your breathing is a biography of your nervous system. Long before someone tells me they're overwhelmed, long before they tell me they're anxious, long before they tell me they're burnt out, their breathing has already told me. Think about the last time you were under pressure. Maybe you had a difficult meeting, on an uncomfortable conversation, a family emergency. What happened to your breathing? It probably became faster, higher into your chest. Maybe you even held your breath without realizing it. That's not a flaw. That's physiology. Your nervous system is incredibly intelligent. When it perceives a threat, whether it's a genuine emergency or simply another overwhelming day at work, it prepares your body for action. Your heart beats faster, your muscles tighten, blood flow shifts towards your arms and legs, your pupils dilate, your attention narrows, and your breathing changes. The problem is, our bodies were never designed to stay here for a long time. The stress response is incredibly effective. It's just not supposed to become your personality. And for so many high achieving women, it does, not because they're weak, but because they're successful. They're rewarded for it. People admire the women who always say yes, the employee who never misses a deadline, the executive who can handle impossible workloads, the friend who is always available, the mother who never complains, the entrepreneur who keeps going no matter what. The world applauds that behavior. Your nervous system pays the bill. One of the concepts I teach my clients is something I call the strong one cycle. Because once you can see the cycle, you can finally begin changing it. It starts with performance. You learn that your value comes from what you do, not necessarily who you are. So you perform, you achieve, you help, you solve, you become reliable. People trust you, they depend on you, it feels good. Then something subtle begins to happen. You move into protection. You stop sharing when you're struggling. You don't want to disappoint anyone. You don't want people to worry. You tell yourself, I'll deal with it later. I'm okay. I've got this. You become incredibly skilled at protecting everyone else from your own experience. Then comes persistence. You push through, you drink another coffee or two, you answer one more email, you sacrifice another evening, you postpone another vacation, you convince yourself you'll rest after this project, after this launch, after the kids are older, after life slows down, except life rarely slows down and eventually you pay the price. Your body starts whispering poor sleep, digestive issues, brain fog, headaches, hormonal changes, fatigue. You ignore the whispers, so your body speaks louder. Anxiety, burnout, panic attacks, chronic pain, autoimmune challenges, emotional exhaustion. Your body isn't pushing you. It's protecting you. It's asking for what it has needed all along: recovery, rest. And here's the beautiful part. Once you recognize the cycle, you no longer blame yourself. You begin working with your biology instead of against it. There's another concept I want to introduce to you because I think it explains so much of what high performers experience. It's called allocystic load. Don't let the science name intimidate you. Think of it like this. Imagine carrying a backpack on the first date feels light. You barely notice it. Then every day, someone quietly adds another book, another responsibility, expectation, disappointment, difficult conversation, sleepless night. And then eventually the backpack becomes so heavy that simply standing up feels exhausting. That's allostatic load. It's the cumulative wear and tear that chronic stress places on the body over time. Notice I didn't say one stressful event. Most people can handle stress. We're built for it. Our bodies are remarkably resilient. The problem isn't the stress. The problem is stress without adequate recovery. Think about your phone. You probably charge it every single day, not because something is wrong with it, but because that's how batteries work. Yet somehow we've convinced ourselves that our nervous system should operate differently. We expect ourselves to keep giving, keep producing, keep caring, achieving without ever fully recharging. It doesn't work that way. Biology always wins. Eventually, your body asks for the recovery your calendar never scheduled in. Sometimes gently, sometimes forcefully. That's why I often say burnout isn't a time management problem, it's an energy management problem. More specifically, it's a nervous system management problem. And here's something else that's fascinating. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately sensed that tension before anyone said a word? Or maybe you've spent time with someone who is incredibly calm, and after 5 minutes, you notice yourself breathing a little slower. That's not your imagination. Our nervous system are constantly communicating with one another. This is actually called co-regulation. Long before language developed, human beings survived because we could read each other's nervous systems. Our brains are continuously scanning for cues of safety or danger, not consciously, automatically. And this process is called neuroception. Unlike perception, which is conscious, neuroception happens below awareness. Your nervous system is constantly asking, am I safe here? Can I relax? Do I need to prepare? That's why one conversation can completely change your day. One email can tighten your chest. One hug can soften your shoulders. One calm voice can actually slow your breathing. One dysregulated leader can dysregulate an entire team. This is why leadership physiology matters so much. Your team doesn't just hear your words, they experience your nervous system. Your children just don't remember what you taught them. They remember how you felt, how they felt around you, how you made them feel. Your parents your partner doesn't simply respond to your opinions, they respond to your emotional state. We're constantly borrowing each other's nervous system. Think about that for a second. If you're leading from a chronic survival mode, people feel it. Maybe not consciously, but biologically. Your breathing speeds up, your speech becomes faster, your shoulders remain elevated, your patience becomes shorter, decision making narrows, creativity decreases, curiosity decreases. Why? Because survival and creativity don't happen in the same physiological state. They can't. When your nervous system believes it's surviving, its priority isn't innovation, its priority is protection. That's why some of your best ideas don't come when you're grinding. They arrive in the shower, walking outside, on vacation, while driving, during meditation. Why? Because your brain finally has enough safety to become creative again. One of my clients, a senior executive, once said something I'll never forget. She told me, Rita, I don't know how to relax anymore. Not, I don't have time. She literally didn't know how. At first, she thought that it sounded ridiculous, but after we explored it together, she realized she'd spent nearly 25 years rewarding herself for productivity, for achieving another goal, for promotion led to greater responsibility, for every success meant more people would depend on her. Her nervous system had learned one simple equation. Stillness equals vulnerability. Productivity equals safety. Can you relate to that? Because I know I can. So you're not alone. I see this every week. Brilliant women, compassionate leaders, incredible mothers, successful entrepreneurs who have become so identified with being needed, they no longer know who they are without the responsibility. I actually call this the biology of being needed because usefulness can become addictive, not emotionally physiologically. Every time someone thanks you, needs you, depends on you, your brain reinforces that identity. Eventually, you stop asking, what brings me peace, and start asking, who still needs me today? That isn't selfishness. It isn't your ego. It's adaptation. Your nervous system found a strategy that worked. The question isn't whether it worked. The question is whether it's still serving you. Because the strongest version of you isn't the version that carries everyone. It's the version whose nervous system knows when to carry and when to put the weight down. And that's exactly what you're going to experience together next. This is where we bring everything together and we actually see the emotional shifts, I hope. So for the next few minutes, I invite you to breathe, to just place one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly. Place your feet firmly on the floor and allow yourself to begin to relax, lengthening your spine without becoming rigid, allowing your shoulders to become a little heavier, noticing your jaw. Many of us carry so many years of responsibility right here in the jaw. So see if you can soften it. Now simply begin to notice your breathing. Don't change it, observe it, and ask yourself, what story is my breath telling me right now? Is it rushed? Is it shallow? Is it calm? There isn't a right answer. There's only awareness, because awareness always comes before transformation, before any change. Now we're going to gently inhale through the nose for 4, and then pause very gently and exhale for 6. In, 2, 3, 4, pause, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, pause, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Continue a few more rounds on your own. In for 4, pause, and then let it go, allowing your ribs to gently expand, noticing your lower ribs widening like an umbrella, and then slowly exhaling, imagining the muscles around your eyes softening, the muscles around your mouth relaxing. Let's do one more gentle inhale, a short pause, and a long, unhurried exhale. Beautiful. Now I want you to imagine something. Picture yourself carrying an incredibly heavy backpack, not filled with books, not filled with expectations, but responsibilities, people's opinions, deadlines, pressure, perfection, the belief that you always have to hold everything together. You've been carrying it for so long, you've almost forgotten it's there. Now imagine taking it off, not forever, just for this moment. Notice your body, how it responds to this image, because something remarkable happens in the brain. It doesn't respond only to reality, it responds to meaning. Visualization changes physiology. That's why elite athletes mentally rehearse. That's why guided imagery can lower stress responses. Your nervous system responds to the stories we repeatedly tell it. Now ask yourself, who would I be if I wasn't always carrying everything? Simply notice what comes up. Maybe there's relief, maybe discomfort, maybe sadness, maybe nothing at all. Whatever arises, welcome. Take another slow breath as you exhale. Silently say to yourself, I don't have to carry everything alone. Again, inhale gently, exhale slowly. I don't have to carry everything alone. Research shows that placing a hand over your heart can reduce physiological stress by creating a greater sense of safety and connection. So notice the warmth beneath your hand. Notice the rise and fall of your breath. This isn't weakness. This is your nervous system regulating. One of the greatest misconceptions about resilience is that resilient people don't struggle, that they always have it together. And that's simply not true. Resilient people recover. They know how to recover. They know how to pause before pushing. They know how to listen before the body starts shouting. Recovery isn't quitting. Recovery is preparation. Think about the ocean. The tide doesn't apologize for going back before it comes back in. Your heart doesn't apologize for resting between beats. Your inhale is followed by an exhale and a natural pause in between. Nature understands rhythm. Only humans try to live without it. Perhaps that's why so many of us feel so exhausted. We've been trying to live like machines when we were always designed to live like living systems with a pulse. They contract, they expand, they activate, they recover. The healthiest nervous systems aren't calm all the time. They're flexible. They move into challenge when needed. They know how to return. That's the goal. Not permanent peace, physiological flexibility. One of the simplest ways to know whether your nervous system is becoming more resilient isn't asking yourself, am I stressed? A better question is, how quickly can I return? Can I notice tension sooner? Can I soften my shoulders? Can I lengthen my exhales? That's resilience. Not about avoiding activation, it's about shortening the distance between coming back to regulation. That's something every single one of us can learn. So before we finish today, I want to leave you with a challenge, not another task, not another thing to add to your calendar, a different way of living. For the next 7 days, I want you to pause 3 times each day, morning, afternoon, evening, just for 1 minute. That's all, 60 seconds. Place one hand on your heart, one hand on your abdomen. Takes 5 or maybe 6 slow breaths. Ask yourself 3 questions. What am I feeling? What does my body need? What can wait until tomorrow? Notice I didn't ask you what still needs to get done because you've spent enough of your life asking that question. This week, I want you to become curious about yourself, not your productivity, not your performance, your humanity. Pay attention to how often your shoulders are elevated, how often you're clenching your jaw, how often you're holding your breath while answering emails, and how often you're apologizing for resting. Those tiny moments tell you a much bigger story. They reveal the relationship you build with yourself, and that relationship can change one breath at a time. I want to leave you with one final thought. Imagine meeting yourself 10 years from now. Not the version with a bigger title or more achievements or a longer resume. Imagine meeting the version of you whose nervous system finally feels safe. She still works hard, cares deeply, still ambitious, but she no longer believes that exhaustion is a proof of commitment. She no longer confuses being needed with being worthy. She no longer measures her value by how much she can carry. She knows that boundaries create better leadership. She knows that recovery fuels creativity and that asking for help is wisdom, not weakness. She laughs more, sleeps better, listens more deeply, breathes more fully. She's still strong, but her strength looks different now. It's quieter, it's steadier, it's no longer driven by fear, it's grounded in safety. And here's what I'd love you to remember: the strongest tree in the forest isn't strong because it resists every storm. It's strong because it knows how to bend. Your nervous system is no different. Strength isn't becoming harder. It's becoming adaptable. Strength is creating enough internal safety that life no longer has to be lived in survival mode. If you spent years being the strong one, I want you to hear these next words. Your worth has never been measured by how much you can carry. Your value has never depended on how little you were needed. And your success has never required the sacrifice of your nervous system. The world doesn't need another exhausted high performer. It needs regulated leaders, present parents, compassionate partners, people whose presence calms a room rather than unintentionally adding stress to it. So I hope that these words have inspired you and resonated with you, because you don't always have to be the strong one. And after everything we've explored today, what is one thing you're finally ready to put down? Thank you for listening. Thank you. And if this resonated with you, please share this video with someone who may really benefit from this information. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones that need permission to exhale.